Welcome to this webinar. This is a webinar we thought we'd do in this time of the year. We do webinars, as you know, in GlobalNet 21 throughout the whole year. And we cover a lot of issues that affect many, many people, not just in this country, but globally as well. But now we're nearing Christmas, and Christmas is a time when people, feel they want to be close to family. And many people find themselves, when they are close to family, when they're trying to celebrate Christmas, not financially being able to be in that position to do it. And they have to rely on help from outside. And there are a number of charities that have been set up to do that, to provide food banks, to provide visiting, to provide all sorts of other help. And the Zebra charity is one of those. And we've got two people here who helped to run that charity in North London, in London Borough of Enfield, Jamie Ashton and Harriet Piercy. And they're going to tell us about that and go through it. So they're going to do a presentation and talk about the work that they do. They're going to do that for about 20 minutes. And then while they're doing that, raise questions, any questions you want. And then when that's over, I'll put those questions that you raised to them and any others. The webinar will go on for no more than an hour. It could be less than that. But we'll carry on up to the hour, as long as we've got questions. Anyhow, Jamie and Harriet, thank you for doing this. And I'm going to hand over to you now to tell us about the work you're doing and the whole question of tackling poverty at Christmas time and the way that you go around it. Can I just say before they start, they've got a rather difficult internet connection today. Mine has been like that as well. I don't know if the weather's affected it, but it has affected their internet connection and mine a little bit. So you may have to be a bit patient if we get a bit of dropout occasionally, and hopefully it will be okay. Anyhow, Jamie and Harriet, I don't know who's going to start. Over to you, and you can begin your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Francis, and thank you very much for your introduction. As you said, I'm Harriet. I'm one of the founders of Zebra's Children's Charity, and this is Jamie, the other co-founder with us tonight. Thank you. We're privileged to be speaking with you this evening. Thank you very much. So this evening's webinar, we will be discussing how austerity and rising poverty is affecting individuals and families, and rising use of food banks, and how our work as a small charity is trying to help alleviate some of the difficulties in our area. Firstly, I'll explain a little bit about our charity. We were formed just in January of this year, 2017. However, we have been functioning as an organisation since 2015, as we were formed originally a community interest organisation, is abbreviated as a CIC, and that's where we started out. We first formed the organisation from our own personal difficulty. Our son is disabled. He's been diagnosed as autistic and learning disabled, and one of our main aims for starting the organisation was to try and help other people who are in the same situation and circumstances as ourselves and our son, to try and sort of help, in the areas that people need support. Both carers, yeah. We're both carers. We just want to drag that in. So our charity is known mainly for providing recreational services to disabled children and adults. However, people may not be aware that part of our charitable purpose also includes the alleviation of poverty, not only to people with disabilities, but to other people who may be in need. So since we became a charity, it's kind of enabled us to be able to tap into other areas. So we're able to sort of collaborate with other organisations and other charities to sort of do our work. And this year we wanted to partner with Tesco's for a project called the Fair Share Project. The Fair Share Project is an initiative whereby Tesco stores have a certain amount of surplus food left over daily, and we actually collect weekly. We could collect a little more if we had sort of volunteers, but we collect every week their surplus date food, and we have a volunteer who then distributes that food out to our beneficiaries. Not only do we work with them, Tesco's, as a partnership, we've also formed a wonderful partnership with Edmonton Army for a Christmas project that we're working on currently at the moment. Yeah.
A bit more later in the webinar.
Yeah, so we'll discuss that a little bit more. But, and most recently, sort of coincide with that, we've become now referrals for North Enfield Food Bank. So as a charity, we are always constantly looking for ways to fundraise and to collaborate with organisations to help us to then be able to do the work to support others. So Jamie, now I'll pass over to you to speak now about austerity and how the whole programme of austerity is having a direct impact on the people that we support as a charity.
Yeah, well, we've all heard the term austerity through the media and also petitions since 2010, really, when the coalition government were in power. And we were told to reduce the budget deficit, which had caused by the global financial crisis. And the only way to reduce the deficit was to reduce benefits and services. And the government made a choice in doing so, actually. They could have gone after the financial sector that actually caused the crash in the first place. But that would have been after the rich and powerful for the money. But instead they chose to, and continue, to persecute the poorest in our country, those who are defenceless. And in doing so, they've caused immense social hardship and long-term developmental damage to children and adults up and down the UK. Disabled have been hit the hardest with austerity, and by 2018 a staggering £28.3 billion would have been from disabled support budgets and benefits. A report commissioned by the charity Scope, this is going back to 2013, stated that by the 2015 general elections, so we're going back a few years now, thousands of people with disabilities have been hit by 6 benefits simultaneously, and a host of other benefit changes, including changes to disability living allowance, ESA, housing benefit, the bedroom tax. These cuts were hitting the same people over and over again on an individual scale, in the home or in a business. You make cutbacks depending on if your outgoings exceed your incomings. It makes sense. However, for an economy which relies on public spending, tax receipts and investment to grow, it doesn't make a lot of sense, to be honest with you, in my opinion. Despite all of these cuts, have a very large deficit, 88% of GDP. And austerity in the UK really can be thought of kind of a mirage. Whilst there have been continuous cuts in social spending and in regional government spending, central government consumption has actually increased in that time. The measures over the last 7 years or so have had such hardship to millions up and down the country, and so many people now reliant on food banks, which is what we're going to discuss in a moment. And literally people are having to choose whether they heat their house and keep warm or they put food on the table. And with the rollout of universal credit, which is combining the 6 key benefits, including child tax, housing benefit, in support, income-based job seekers allowance, income-related employment and support allowance, and also working tax credit, we are concerned as a charity and personally that there will be further rise in poverty, yet we're still the 6th richest economy in the world.
Yeah,
it's pretty sad, really.
Yes. To continue on from, you're starting to discuss about food banks. As I mentioned in our, my introduction and my first speech, we as a charity are now referral agents for the North Enfield Food Bank. So this means that we are now able to offer and distribute vouchers to those in need. We do have contact with councils, like Enfield councils, who are able to be given information of those who are in need. So we're able to now.
It's all confidential.
It's all confidential. So yeah, obviously confidential. So we are able to offer vouchers to people who would be in need. Yeah. And it's alarming to know, people may not know. So it's alarming that 1 in 5 people are now living in poverty in the UK. And within 6 months, almost 600,000 emergency food supplies have been issued, this being a 13% increase on the same period last year. Almost 209,000 of those supplies were for children. So, that's appalling to think that the amount of children are living in poverty. And in London, it's been reported that we have the highest child poverty child poverty is high in London, according to Child Poverty Action Group. In 2015 to 2016, 4 million children are now reported to be living in poverty in the UK. That's 30% of children. So if you can imagine a classroom of 30 children, 9 of those children will be living in poverty. You know, it's taken a minute just to think about that. We all know what a classroom, you know, the statistics look like. 9 of those children are living in poverty. From the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, a total of 14 million people in the UK are currently living in poverty. So that's a fifth of our population are living in poverty. So evidently, food banks are a vital lifeline. They are becoming a lifeline to so many people. However, it shouldn't be necessary. We're in the 21st century, and it's, you know, you sit in disbelief to think we're almost living like Victorian times when you've got so many people that are so badly in poverty, and then we've got so many people that are so very rich.
People literally relying on charities and the goodness of individuals and really be able to turn to their local government and their regional government. You know, so
for the
support.
Yeah, we'd be having this statistic that as they are. And the primary reason for a referral to the food bank, some people might be wondering, well, who gets referred? According to the Trussell Trust Food Bank charity, the primary reason for people to be referred would be that they are on low income, they've got delays in their benefits, or there's been a change in their benefits. Because if you change your circumstances, we know that on a personal level, you change your circumstances, it can change and mess up basically for a period of time where things settle. So then you might then fall late with your rent. You're not going to be able to feed yourselves because you've got to then work out, well, I buy food that week. You know, that's some of the primary reasons why people will then be referred to the food bank. So another question that might be raised is, well, what do food banks actually do? What do they do for people? So like we mentioned about a voucher, those who are in need will be issued a voucher whereby they'll be able to then be supplied with a 3-day emergency supply of food in order to make themselves nutritionally based meals, something good and nutritional and wholesome. They'll need to go and collect those items themselves from the food bank. They have to take the voucher to the food bank to collect the items, bring them away with them to take home. The Trussell Trust don't only provide food, they also do services like money advice for people to help them if they're in debt or other reasons why they may need money advice, to help them manage their money. Budget cookery courses to help them to budget their food bills, to help them to be more economical. We know also that if you don't have any money, it's very hard to then budget when you have nothing on. So it's quite it's a difficult it's a tightrope you're walking on of trying to survive. And they also signpost people to other agencies for services to be able to help them to align causes as to why they've fallen into poverty, or why they've reached crisis point, or why they're needing to rely on a food bank, or but we know that there's many reasons why somebody could, but each individual circumstance is going to be different. So the Trussell Trust help people in all areas, not just providing them with the vouchers. And currently there's 28 food banks across the UK, which we can't express
that
enough.
amount has risen since 2010 as well. It's far less before well,
it's now reached to 428. It may even be more than that now. This is what we've kind of researched, and as we said, they are literally a lifeline for people. However, the interim CEO of the Trussell Trust, his name is Mark Ward, has expressed his deep concerns that food banks will struggle to meet the demands this winter if there's changes to the benefit delivery if they're not made now. So he has deep concerns as to what's happening, especially with the rollout of the universal credit, which we mentioned. That is his main concern, is that the universal credit is going to throw people further into poverty. Most areas, it's been recorded that having a 6-week waiting list for their first payment from the universal credit, and in some other areas it's due to poor administration. Bad administration. And like I said, we know personally, if you change your stance, so if when you change your circumstance, it changes things for a period of time. So this is like it is going to be a change. It's going to be a change to all of the benefits that you're receiving. It's going to cause a hiccup. It's not, and it should run smoothly, but it never does, unfortunately. However, having said that, some authorities have had success.
They've got it right.
Yes, they have managed to get it right, and it has kind of worked. So I think we need to learn from those that are working and look at that and think, well, if it's
what are they
working
doing
that
different?
why is it working in that area and perhaps not in another? You know, it should be working the same across the whole of the UK, isn't it?
So you might wonder, as a small charity, to help our local area, really. Might be small, but we do make a big difference to Enfield, basically. So mentioned earlier, we've partnered with some fantastic organisations, and one in particular we're very excited about is Edmonton Salvation Army. We're working together this year with our first Christmas collection. It's our first Christmas collection. However, Edmonton Salvation Army, it's their third year collection, so they've helped many families in the past. And today, actually, I've spent the whole day at their their church, and been packing food parcels and putting toys in big bags of toys, in bags which will be distributed at the end of this week to families that are most in need this Christmas.
Well, as a charity, we've purchased £250 worth of toys,
and more today,
and more, and actually probably
today.
More than that as well. That doesn't sound like a huge amount, but it's you know, that's our kind of contribution so far. And obviously the Salvation Army have got a budget for
everyone there working really hard today.
They do a fantastic job. We just want to say that they do an amazing job. Often go quite unrecognised, I think, for the work that they do, and the difference they're making. Like you said, 60 families.
It's about, well, we're going to get onto that at the moment. But so together, we're working together and collaborating is helping us to support around 60 families this year. But that number may grow as for Christmas. People come forward and ask for extra help and support. So that's great. You know, so working together, you can achieve that sort of thing. And actually arranging the food collections has kind of taken the charity in a completely new direction this year, really. Myself and Harriet are very privileged to be providing home visits. Myself as Sam and Harriet as Christmas, to families with children with life-limiting conditions. The charity will obviously purchase some special gifts for those children, so we're going to make the day very special for them. And just this last Saturday, organised a relaxed Santa's Grotto, children with disabilities and their siblings, and that was a success. We have some real positive feedback. It's
fantastic. That was you know, like we said, we've only been formed since January, so we aim to do this every year. So this year we've kind of tried these things, but we will be doing it next year, and we will be raising money specifically for those projects every year, so that we can then provide them in this area.
And it's a lifeline, isn't it? You know.
It is a lifeline. It makes such a difference. This is the I'll just show you the poster that we've been sharing on social media. I don't know if you can see that. You won't see all of it. It says that we're sort of, you know, we've partnered with Edmonton Salvation Army and what we required, and we were so delighted to have many businesses come forward to support us for collections. And the collection date actually ended today. However, it's still ongoing. If anybody wants to supply us with donations,
we certainly wouldn't say no.
Because there still might be more numbers that come forward, like you said before, as Christmas approaches. There could be more families or people or individuals that come forward that are in need, so we want to be able to support them too. So we're still. And it's good.
Sorry to interrupt, but as good as it's, you know, you see we've got all these bags of toys and all this food, and it's quite amazing the generosity of colleagues, my work colleagues, businesses, also other religions have been very, very giving. I can't express that enough, really. It's also quite sad when you see so many bags of toys, and you kind of think, you know, it must be many people, and you know, this is a few referrals. This is just a couple of referrals, really.
Well, we actually worked with the early support team, and they had a longer list that they wanted to give us, but we sort of had to limit it, unfortunately, this year, because we know how much we can sort of provide and how much, you know, Salvation Army can provide. So, you know, like I said, next year we want to raise. We can then help more and more families that are desperately in need. There is a huge need. So really to conclude, we're really proud of the charity and the developments that we've been making in such a short space of time, really, and we want to just take this opportunity just to thank our supporters, our volunteers, our trustee Leighton, who I believe is online tonight with us, our other trustees too, for their help throughout the year for the charity, and all the supporters yeah, would like to also mention that myself and Jamie, we are volunteers. I'm a voluntary CEO. Jamie's a voluntary chair of trustees. So we do work incredibly hard because we've got our own personal difficulties too. Difficult circumstances. But yeah, so I mean, we could explain it briefly a little bit before we go. Just that our son Joshua, whom the charity's been our inspiration, he received a very late diagnosis of autism, and anybody that understands autism know that that's really to have received a diagnosis. So things haven't been easy for us. You've had to sort of go part-time working due to our care commitments. So our lives have really changed. However, it's just made us more determined and more passionate to help others, so we can together try and build a better future.
So we have a real understanding, that's what we're saying. We have a real understanding of the difficult. So.
We have a direct understanding, but together we believe that we can try and lead by example and show how things should be done. And,
sort of conclude from my point of view, in my personal opinion, I feel at the moment we have a very unfair system in this country which is persecuting the poorest and vulnerable as opposed to providing the support that they need. And I feel surely the government should be judged on how they help those in need, really. We must remember that austerity is a programme and therefore it's a political choice. But to say a huge thank you to anyone that's watched this evening and has joined us for this webinar. We're really privileged and really grateful for inviting to speak tonight, and thank you, Francis. And I'd like to now hand over to you. I think we're about 20 minutes.
Yeah, we've
okay. Your timing is pretty good. I can tell you some people's timing is not. They go on forever, and you said all that nice and crisply in the time. Right. If anybody has any questions, if anyone has any questions, please type them in, and we'll put them to Jamie and Harriet. I mean, you've told us your story, and that's really interesting. But I mean, how did you get started on all of this? Was it because of your son when he was diagnosed, or were you interested in it before that? And did you start before that? When did it begin? When did you go on this journey?
I think I've always had a passion to help people. I'm a counsellor and life coach as well, so I've always wanted to help others, and I think we're both, you too, we both wanted to help others. And I think just as our circumstances come around with the difficulties that we've had, I mean, the last 5 years our life has been incredibly hard, and I think it's just our attitudes of sort of how we are as people is just, it just all formed. We started off thinking it's going to be something very kind of small. We're not big by no means, but it just started tiny as we thought a group of parents getting together, and then we started branching into other things. Really,
just sort of move forward. We're not. We're very small, very very small, but it's early days, but we have.
We've got
quite
our
a bit,
vision,
really.
haven't we? We've got our visions that we want and how we want things to develop, so to speak. So it's.
Yeah, I understand your vision.
That passion and drive forward, I think.
Yeah, I understand your vision, but what a lot of people will be interested in is actually how you got it going step by step, because they may want to do something else in terms of community action, and learning from you will be great. I mean, you had this idea. I mean, how did the idea then translate into getting people involved? Who did you see? And then how did you decide to make contact with supermarkets and so on? What was the step-by-step approach?
Initially, once we got our heads together, and I kind of told you that we're going to form an organisation, and this is what it's going to be. We went and had a meeting at the Enfield Business Centre.
Which was, you get a free meeting at Enfield Business Centre, actually, if you're
starting a business.
But we went down there, didn't we? We didn't think we were starting a business.
Not really. We're starting a kind of stay and play group for parents, and they liked our idea, I believe, and kind of said to us, well, you need to perhaps register as a company, register as a community interest company, and we didn't even know what that was.
Well, to be honest, we were going there, like we say, thinking it was going to be more of a group. We've gone there with all safeguarding policies, health and safety. But it was just, hang on a minute, you're not a business, you need to become a business.
Register as a business. So that's what we kind of did. I mean, in hindsight, if we'd have tried to register as a charity, because it isn't a business, what we started is not a business, it's charitable. We weren't charging for something that was really quite unique, to be honest. We weren't charging expensive fee for people to come to stay and play. And in hindsight, we should have sort of run it as a charity to start, but we've done 2 years of that as the community first company, and then we decided, no, this needs to be a charity. So it was actually last year we started thinking, let's form a charity, which was quite a brave decision, to be honest, because it's not an easy process, is it?
No, it's a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
And we kind of made the decision to go for charitable status, and it was because we were missing out on certain funding. We missed out on being supported by Sainsbury's, actually. We filled out all the forms. We actually got a phone call to say they were interested in us, to then be told, hang on a minute, can't support a CIC.
Yeah.
It has to be a registered charity only. So we missed out on that. So that was
And you need funding. We're renting a hall from Enfield Council, so we were actually not running not to debt, but it wasn't running as a business. It wasn't going to be any profit in it or anything. So we needed we needed funding. We need funding for the project, so to speak. And we thought, well, we can't get that unless we're a charity. So hence why we went forward and did all the paperwork and elected trustees. We've got wonderful Leighton, who's online tonight with us. He's one of our trustees. He's been fantastic. So we went through that whole process, paperwork, and got the one news in January 2017 that we've become a registered charity in England and Wales. And it was from then that I sort of got all rolling. I was like, right, well, what can we tap into now? Because we're now a registered charity. We obviously there's areas now we can get into. And I actually discovered, I typed in, for food, I put Tesco's first of all, and it came up with a fair share project. I thought, well, what's a fair share project? So I did a little bit more research into that, and then that's when we formed a partnership with them. That we had to go through application, and they sort of said, no, you fit the criteria. You're meeting with beneficiaries, so therefore you can then distribute food, like I mentioned in the talk. That's not we haven't mentioned one big partnership actually that we formed this year, was with the Tottenham Hotspurs Foundation. We program which Leighton named. Actually, Leighton named the program called Zebras Active, whereby we ran a 10-week program for children to access sport, the children with disabilities and their siblings as well. Yeah, to come along. But that involved, negotiating with Tottenham Hotspur Foundation. I had several meetings with them down at the stadium when it was being built, or still being built, the old stadium. So it was really quite nice, wasn't it? Yeah. And went and met with them to negotiate this new project that we were going to work on together. And luckily, again, we got that. So we were really excited to be partnering with them, and involved them providing us with coaches for free. So we had 10 weeks of Tottenham Hotspur Foundation coaches for free. For the Zebras Active project, which we ran from June till October, that only ended recently, really. So that was one of the other partnerships. And like you said, Francis, how do we tap into these things? I think we just think outside the box a bit. We were thinking, like, well, who can help us, and what can we do, sort of thing. And you just keep moving all the time. Our charity's quite fast paced in the fact that we're always doing something. We're always looking for new ways and things to tap into. It's actually constant work in there. Yeah. You're constantly working.
And the key thing is we're still learning. We're learning all the time, learning new things, learning where we can find different funding from. It's constant. We don't know everything,
No, not at all.
You also meet other people that know more than you. Yeah. So it's always good to tap their knowledge as well. So.
So it's still developing.
So I mean, you had your mission. You sort of went to the business centre. You jumped in at the deep end. But what did you want to focus on? Was it poverty? Was it disability? And what did you have in mind when you started? Was it food banks? Was it giving advice? Was it getting people together? Or did that develop and grow gradually? Did you have something that you began with that then blossomed out?
I think it's like we said, things are evolving as it goes along. As we formed as a charity, a part of our charitable purpose is to provide recreation services, but also to alleviate poverty, because that's an area that we feel passionate about because of our own.
And we also know that if you've got a child with disabilities, you're bound to struggle financially. We do, so I'm sure others do as well. And that was a drive. We wanted to help others in similar situations to ourselves, really. And try and provide the support that way.
So things are constantly evolving, like we said in our speech, that even this year we've come towards the end of the year, but things are starting to change. We know next year we're sort of evolving, things are changing all the time. Our purpose is always the same, and objectives, we're actually fulfilling more and more of them as time's going on. It's kind of, sort of developing, and which is exciting really, because it means that we sort of
we wanted community, didn't we? We wanted a community, like of supporters and people that use the service and the charity. The recreation, we haven't discussed the recreation.
No, because unfortunately we had to close some services this year. We were providing support. The group that started out was called Zebra's Club, and it was children developed an adult group called ZAG, and we ran them for almost 2 years for the children's club, over a year for the adults. But unfortunately, because we've lacked voluntary support, which is just unfortunate. It's just we can't get people to sort of to commit to long-term voluntary support is what we need, because we do need consistency when you work with disabled people. That's one thing we did want, especially for the children. But unfortunately, we didn't have the voluntary support for those services down this year, which is really quite sad. However, we were developing a new an initiative to start in January, hopefully January 2018, which is called the Zebras Recreation Fund, whereby parents or individuals themselves with a disability can apply for funding up to £100 to use on a recreational activity
of their choice. That's the main thing. Sorry.
Because everybody likes to do different things. That's one thing we've sort of learned on the process as well, that everybody likes to do different things. So we're trying to create a club where everybody was doing the same thing. It was working, but it wasn't working in some aspects. We think with this will be a lot better for people. They can then go off and choose if they want to try salsa dancing or horse riding. They can then apply, and we will pay the provider for their recreation. So again, that's something that we're heading into the new year.
And also advice and information. We're looking at ways of relaying that information to our beneficiaries. If they're
especially regarding benefits and things like that some people aren't aware of what they're entitled to, or they might be missing out on certain aspects of the disability allowance, or other income support and things. They might not think they qualify, so therefore some people are sometimes a little bit afraid to even find out if they're entitled. So we want to be there as a support service too.
And the other key thing is advocacy, even just peer advocacy, just coming along to a meeting with, say, social workers and
which you have done.
I have done that. Just to literally, sometimes just to be there, not even saying. Some people on their own, and they just need a bit of support. And we're happy to do that as well.
Well, we have found that a lot of single parents do kind of.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Francis.
No, I was going to say, I was listening to what you were saying there, Jamie, that you started working with social workers and so on. That must have been a new sort of field for you. Suddenly you're in this world of professionals you haven't worked with before, and you think, oh my gosh, they probably know a lot more than me, but they probably don't. You learn, you find out very soon that you know as much as them. How did you get accustomed to working in that world with professionals and working together in collaboration?
I've worked in the mental health field myself previously anyway. So, my MD, where I previously worked, he was a social worker. So, and I think I've never been afraid to challenge people and authority or feel like we're not in a place to have our say, because we have personally had dealings with social workers, obviously with our son, and we have challenged people's decisions. Our son's homeschooled. He was withdrawn from school when he was 5. So we've kind of fight our own corner, should we say.
It's not always a done thing. You don't.
No, not everybody homeschools, but it's worked for us, and we've seen so many developments with our son, from a child that wasn't speaking properly and was probably not going to be able to read. This year he's fantastically started reading, and so that's a separate story in itself. But we've dealt with social workers and other professionals personally, so now dealing with them professionally too. It's a different way. And we feel
just how you are.
And we feel like there is things in the system that do need tweaking in that area, but we're hoping that we can then bring in our ideas now that we are a charity.
We're sort of dealing with life in reality.
Well, you can't beat, can you? You can't beat sort of hands-on experience in all aspects of life, can you? You can all study, but instead of doing it, then you can't, that's common, isn't it? Common knowledge, really. But yeah. So no, we don't feel intimidated by no means of dealing with professionals, or yeah, we see ourselves as professionals now in some respects.
Yeah. Well, Peter Feltham actually said that CICs and charities can often do things that official channels and social workers can't do because they have so many bureaucratic pressures. Do you find that's true, and do you find that you have much more freedom? You can get around constraints in a way that they can't.
I guess what Peter's trying to say there is that they might not be able to raise a political voice, maybe. We can do that.
we can campaign, can't we?
We can campaign. One of our charitable objectives is to alleviate poverty. I mean, they can't criticise government. There's no doubt, and we can probably get around things like that, and, and raise our voice that way. So
for the people, isn't it? And
and maybe also there's a lot of red tape, isn't there? I think that's what,
and a lot of people do leave the social work industry, I believe, because of the red tape. All the time, people do leave that profession.
We'll just say it as it is.
I think what Peter is saying really is that if you're in social work, you're in a structure where you've got committees, you've got middle management, you've got another layer of management, you've got another layer of management, but you actually can do things very quickly. You have an idea and you go for it, and you say to Leighton, "Hey Leighton, let's work with Tom." He goes off and does it. You say to someone else, "Oh, that's a great idea. Let's go for it." And then you don't have to go through weeks and weeks of committee discussion.
Yeah, you do have to be brave, though. I think, and you do have to take. No. Yeah, but we do obviously. Our trustees are our kind of board, aren't they? And their opinion is ultimate in the running of the charity. So
but we move things fast. Otherwise sometimes you have to. Otherwise you miss the boat. Funding terms, or if someone needs help, you've got to act, haven't you? You've got to act and react, if you like, very quickly.
Yeah.
So
so we are in quite a good position.
Perhaps a panel would meet of social workers to access certain funding. We'll go for it. We'll just agree it. This is charitable. We'll help out there where we can.
Yeah.
So we just make a decision really.
Okay, the people you do help, how do you find them, your beneficiaries? I mean, do they come to you? Do you go out and seek them? Are they individuals? Are they groups? Where do they come from?
When we first started the CIC, so we came back to when we was Zebras Children's Club CIC, we contacted schools, didn't we? We contacted Russet House and
local schools.
Lots of local schools, and that's how people started attending our group. And same with the adults group. I contacted 20 care homes in Enfield, sent letters explaining what we do, what we're looking at setting up, and possibly only 3 different homes actually turned up, but they brought that with them, which was brilliant. For the Christmas collection, this recent one, it's a referral basis.
But we do use social media, and also quite heavily we do use social media. But prior to that, we've sort of been in touch with other organisations and businesses and things. It's a lot of that kind of thing, isn't it?
That's right. That's how we kind of spread our word.
And I was just going to say, it has just been a process of people beginning to know what we're doing and who we are, isn't it?
Basically, we did a fundraiser for us over at Heathfields. It gave me an audience of goodness knows how many people to stand up and tell them about our charity.
But we have been in the paper a couple of times, like local paper, not national papers, but local. We've a couple of times as well, so people have sort of started to know who we are, and it's been kind of that sort of process, isn't it?
It's also making links with those professionals, like we say, we did contact Children's Centre for this, because I thought that was one way of finding out those who are really most in need this year, and that's how we got the referral back for these 20-odd families that need support.
When you do what you do, do you raise money, obviously, because you say that sometimes a beneficiary needs to get toys, needs to get something, and you can help them financially. How do you raise the money? How do you get the money? How do you operate the business side of what you do?
When we were running as a CIC, like we said, it was a lot more difficult. We were, and that's where we were thinking this isn't working, because we were actually holding events. Say we did like a Christmas, come and see Santa, we did one year, or we did Easter, an Easter event. We were actually sort of saying to, well, they weren't beneficiaries then, they were sort of, you know, using the service. So I don't like the term service users, but using the service. And they were sort of saying, oh, £5 for this, and you know, and sort of make it a business, but it wasn't a business. But we did have funding from for a sponsor that, you know, we had sponsorship then, so we were able to then kind of work it as a business. But we had to, like you say, we had to manage it as a business then. But becoming a charity has helped us to channel into different areas, isn't it, for financial support. Yeah, I mean, again, what's really helped us again is your where you work has supported us, hasn't it? And
Switch,
yeah. So it's like sponsorship, isn't it, and funding.
All the way since being a CIC, and also now as a charity, they supported us this year. But our funding is pretty sporadic, really. We are constantly looking for different
ways, especially now as a charity. It is about fundraising all the time, or finding. I mean, we've been quite fortunate this year. A couple of things that have been happening have said, like, we'll raise money for you on behalf of you and whatnot.
Very fortunate, really. And also, I don't know if you know, Francis, I'm actually a president of the Rotary Club of Enfield Chase as well. So I've got links to various Rotary. There's 5 different Rotary clubs in Enfield, and Edmonton and Enfield Chase are very keen supporters of us.
And have been from the start.
And I haven't actually had a chance to talk to the other Rotary clubs yet. So you know, they raise money throughout the year for lots of different. They do some great work as well. They do, you know, they raise money for lots of different causes for the year, and then they release this money at the end of the year. So it all helps out, doesn't it? And
just one point that you mentioned, Hilly Fields in Enfield. It was a wonderful thing in the summertime. It was like a band over at the bandstand on Hilly Fields, and they were raising the money for us this year, and another charity. So it wasn't just us. On each day they raised for different charities, and one day it was ours. We raised £600 that day, which was amazing in one day. But from that, people that saw us there, that was an hour. It was £600 an hour. That was amazing. But somebody must have seen us, and because we were handing out our leaflets. But not long after that, a week or so after that, we got an email from John Lewis Distribution Centre. John Lewis, distribution centre that's in Enfield, and they want to support us, and they're supporting us now with meetings with them about ways they're going to help fundraise for us. So it all just, we understand things take time. Like we said, we've only been going for almost not even a year yet, and yet we've already made all these kind of connections. So we can only see that things are just, you know, hopefully going to get better and better.
I mean, for someone who's going for just a year, it sounds like you're doing an amazing job, especially in raising funds, which is great. I mean, the point that Peter's putting up is that he says he has a friend in Geneva who discovered that, you know, nothing was being done for autistic children in the summer. And he started a summer school where they taught music and mathematics and so on. And he was surprised how thankful people were. I suppose it's having an autistic son that gives you a particular motivation and a focus. And I bet you're great fans of the A Word on Monday nights, aren't you? Or Thursday nights when it comes on television.
It's very good. Yeah, it's good. Elements of it that obviously we look at, and because like we said, Josh has been given diagnosis of autism, but we feel he's learning disabled, and there is a slight difference. He's got autistic tendencies, however, he's slightly different to sort of. But then all children are different anyway. But
they're all different.
Yeah, you know, his diagnosis wasn't concrete, I don't think, anyway. So
I say once you've met one person with autism, you know,
exactly. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it certainly gives us the drive, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The other thing is you mentioned the Trussell Trust. How important is it to have a sort of support background, like a trust, like the Trussell Trust? And there's another project, I think, working locally called the Felix Project. Do you work at all with them as well? I mean, do you collaborate with them, and do you rely a lot on the background, the research and the support that the Trussell Trust can give you?
But it's great. It's real great relief almost. So if someone does come to us that's in crisis, we we've got the ability now to put them in the right direction and you know, get them the help they need as well as a charity. I mean, we can obviously do them in the short term, but long term it might be slightly difficult. So that's all we're really.
But if we're learning from obviously them, because they're you know a huge charity in comparison, we're so tiny. So we're learning from bigger charities, if you like, of how they're doing things, and if we can sort of support a small area of people, we feel like we're doing a good job. But it is learning from other people too, other charities like you mentioned, have the Felix project, but we're not in connection with them as such at the moment.
Yeah, but you're a perfect example of small is beautiful, aren't you? That you can actually start small and you can do things, and you can find and you can find things in your local community that maybe a bigger charity might not be able to find, because your connection with the grassroots is very, very strong.
Because we feel like we're very hands-on sort of thing with everything. We don't ever want to lose that part of it, that we're still very much in touch with everybody and how things are going.
I think we'll always remain like that.
Yeah,
you want to be
community.
on what I call being on the ground.
Yeah,
you're there, you're dealing with it, you understand it.
Well, I don't think, because it would be hard for us to take a step back anyway from all of it, I think, and just we want to make sure that the benefit is that it's all working in the way it should be. You know, we don't want to take no big fat wages as CEOs or anything like that. Thank you very much. You know what I mean? Because that's not what it's about. It's about making sure we're making changes and things are, you know, going as they should. You know.
For the people that need it, people that really need.
And see, so we can actually happening, and it's following.
We do enjoy it. You know, it gives you've got determination to help others. And
don't get me wrong, we're tired, because obviously we're very tired with what we're doing anyway. But it something just drives you forward, I think, and that's what's been driving us. I'm probably driving you mad.
Well, yeah, you obviously do very well together. I mean, you mentioned that you work with Tesco and you take their surplus food, and you mentioned John Lewis as well in terms of fundraising. Do you work with other supermarkets as well and look for their surplus? Have you contacted them, or have they contacted you, or is that a step too far at the moment?
We've been in touch again with Sainsbury's this year, but we've not heard. We've been in touch again with Sainsbury's, but we've not heard from them as yet. I mean, things will take time as well. You can sort of send a letter and not get a response for some time. It does all just, we like we said, we just have to be patient. But at the moment, it's just
it's also support with. Well, that's the other key thing. I mean, I work evenings, which is good for our homeschooling Joshua Avenue, but it's also a lot of the collections are in the evening, so it's quite difficult. We collect on a Sunday evening actually, which works for me because I'm off at weekends. So it's finding the support and building the volunteer base really, which is going to bring, I think.
Yeah, we need to sort of look for more volunteers so then we can actually sort of expand on things that we're doing. At the moment, we are kind of doing. We've got Leighton, who's fantastic, and our other trustees too that are wonderful. But we do need like other volunteers for the projects, like for our main projects that we're aiming to do throughout the year. So we're going to sort of have a volunteer drive in 2018, because we partner with Enfield Voluntary Action in respect that volunteer supervisors, I go to them for advice in regards to employing volunteers and any kind of policies and things that we need to put in place for what we're doing, and they've been fantastic help actually. They're really helpful. In regards to us customer services this year, they were really fantastic with their advice, because we couldn't carry on as we were, because we were kind of doing everything, and we just it was really heart-wrenching to close those services. But however said that, there might be some light at the end of the tunnel. In the new year, we might be opening up the adult service again and looking for something else for the children.
Okay,
so projects are on the go. So.
Okay, so supposing people watch this video when it goes out on YouTube and so on, and they're interested in volunteering and helping out, how would they get in touch with you? How would they get involved?
We only advertise on doit.org, which is the UK-based site for employing volunteers. It's regulated. We're actually verified with them, which we're quite proud of. So all of our positions are verified. So we'd only ever look at a CV or an application that's come through from there. And in regards to how they would find that, on our website, on a page which explains about employment, if you wish to hear. So if they were to see our website, then they could either send us an email, then we would, or I would, because like I said, I organise all the voluntary employment. We would then send them an application form, and then we would just go from there and see if they fit the criteria for the positions that we've got available at the time.
I'll make sure that your website is known when the video goes around. And
thank you. That'd be fantastic.
So people will find out about that. Okay, so you've just been going for about a year, and you're full of enthusiasm. Do you think you'll ever get burnt out, or can you see this going for quite a long time? And how would you like to see it be, say, in 5 years' time?
We've been running the children's club in total. It was for about
almost 3
years, really.
Yeah.
And I think we were, in all honesty, slightly burnt out. Trying to juggle work life and also.
We were doing the clubs. They were every 2 weeks, but no, that doesn't sound a lot. We used to have to set all the equipment out and everything, so it was hard physically going, setting everything out, and then obviously being like we do work in the kitchen as well, so we'd be, which we love. That's what we wanted to do, but we couldn't do it all in the end. We realised it was going to be too much, so that's why this sort of, we see the things as moving forward that it's more sort of admin work. It will be with the recreation fund.
And obviously when we're doing some Christmas time and always
one-off event. So I don't level every morning when we get up. I see myself. I know it sounds a bit dramatic, but every morning we see him, it just reminds you of why we're doing this.
I actually want to raise the voice politically. Even though we're a small charity, that's kind of where we want to, go next with it as well. Personally,
I was going to say you're very passionate. Well, you're very passionate about your politics, so but we both do. But you especially, are interested in that side of things.
I noticed Jamie likes the political stage, so we saw that, and that's great. Anyhow, we're getting close to the end now, so I'm going to thank you for doing that presentation and talking about it. I mean, not only have you told us about the work you do, but you've told us about how you started it up, and you've given us some idea about how other people can start things up as well if they've got the passion to do it. And I think you demonstrated how, however small you are, you can make a real difference to people around you, and you can get other people involved. And I think that's important for people to find out. You don't have to join a big organisation. You don't have to be just a cog in somebody else's wheel. You can actually do things yourselves. You can get it started. And you can find the right support and the right backup. You can make it work. It's a benefit to lots of other people. So thank you for doing that.